Western female protagonists are rated 30% lower than male leads. And if they want to fix this, they should take notes from Mao Mao. So what makes Mao Mao work while Western media keeps getting it wrong? Anime has never been afraid of female leads, and for the past year, Mao Mao from the Apothecary Diaries has been one of anime's most fun, independent, and well-loved protagonists, with shockingly minimal fan service. But it's not just Mao Mao, it's how she fits into her world, and that's what I call the Mao Mao effect. And to really understand why she works so well, let's break it down into 4 key points. You know how some protagonists just feel different? Well, Mao Mao is one of them. She's a poison-loving, sharp-witted gremlin who got kidnapped and forced to work in Hell on Earth, a place called the Inner Court, where countless emperors' concubines scheme, backstab, and do other mean girl things at each other. And somehow she's thriving. The Apothecary Diaries itself is a story of mysteries and unexpected twists in the Inner Court, and how Mao Mao, using her apothecary skills, sharp wit, and sometimes very questionable skills, solve those cases that she just for some reason keeps getting swept into. And she does that for one noble purpose: to not get fired. If I had to describe Mao Mao, she's like a puzzle. The more you break her, the more sides of her you see. That sounds really wrong, but I'm gonna keep it that way. And no episode shows is better than episode 4. So normally, Mao Mao keeps a detached whatever face. She doesn't really want to stand out and usually plays ignorant. But in episode 4, she's ordered by the emperor himself to nurse concubine Li Hua back to health. Li Hua at that time had just lost her child and was on the brink of losing her will to live. Mao Mao herself doesn't have a great impression on Li Hua, but this is the emperor's order. But just because it's the emperor's order doesn't mean other people will make it easy. Especially those prideful attendants of Li Hua. Mao Mao practically faced bullying. But not for long, because soon enough, Mao Mao realizes that Li Hua's attendants are still using lead-based cosmetics on a currently bedridden Li Hua, deadly and illegal. And Mao Mao snaps. Mao Mao drops all the nice act, the usual deadpan expression is gone, and straight up slap one of Li Hua's attendant. And fortunately, Li Hua can still be saved, and then using everything at her disposal, Li Hua gets back to health. But she doesn't stop there. Realizing that Li Hua is actually kind and wise, she also helps her reclaim her place in the emperor's eyes. And by that I mean she gives Li Hua bedroom advice, education in the most practical way to the most suitable candidate. That's Mao Mao for you. This episode perfectly sums up Mao Mao. She's not just skeptical and guarded all the time, she has heart, humor, and moments where she's outright terrifying. And that's one of the things that makes her really fun to watch. And now, let's look at the opposite side of the spectrum. And unfortunately, I have one name in mind: Galadriel. She's actually insane. No way she's mentally okay. Just look at this. And look at that smile. That's not normal. You see, from the first moment we see her, she's presented as ultra powerful, consumed by revenge, and somehow always right. And that's it. That's her personality in episode 1, and much later, it's still the same. Her hobby is being intense, self-serious, and being better than literally everyone, especially men. And I kid you not, it's always men. You know the Zlatan Ibrahimovic meme? That's Galadriel. She is right, and if she is wrong, then the world is wrong. And apparently the world will stop spinning if that means making Galadriel right. And the worst part is this: even when there's an obvious opportunity to be interesting or nuanced, she just goes, nope, let me do this horse pose instead. Seriously, who thought that was a good idea? And you know when I said Galadriel always right? Yeah, let's talk about competence and realism. Talking about competence, we love the tension and release of earned success. But Mao Mao looks like she's smart and crafty right from episode 1, like she's an OP protagonist or something. So what makes it more acceptable? Maybe you'll get it if I give you a glimpse of Mao Mao's backstory and how it perfectly matches her competence, even to a more unique points. Mao Mao was raised by an apothecary named Luomen, her adoptive grandfather. Luomen is a brilliant mind. He just really sucks at marketing, so Mao Mao grew up dirt poor, despite their skills. But Mao Mao's childhood was even stranger than that. For starters, Mao Mao was literally born and raised in a high-class brothel called the Fair Degrees House. Before Luomen adopted her, she grew up around the manager, the madam, and the top courtesans there. Ah no, eventful childhood. What's great is how the story shapes Momo based on those facts. I mean, let's not talk about the obvious, there are four unique things here. First, freckles. They're fake. She paints them herself so she won't attract unwanted attention in the pleasure district. Or how, two, she's also really good on how to bargain, strategize, and manipulate her way out of trouble, especially against men. Her background also explains her hilarious defensiveness around Jinsei, a pretty boy who's far too used to charming women. Well, after all, she's watched all the best courtesans empty even the richest men's wallets. And there's also the Lihua's case.
Nightly knowledge.
She's so good at it that she held a lecture of it. Come on, she grew up in a pleasure district. And much of this are actually established early in the story, some from episode 1. So when Momo effortlessly solved mysteries using her apothecary knowledge, street smarts, and occasionally really questionable tactics, it feels right. But what happens when a character doesn't have that realistic foundation? Rei. Rei, unfortunately, represents one of Hollywood's biggest protagonist problems. From watching Rei is often treated like a self-insert character, basically a blank slate viewers are supposed to project into. Not only because her background is basically non-existent for so long, it's also because Rei feels almost immune to real consequences. Sure, sometimes she messes up, but does it really matter? Nope. Everything's gonna be fine with Rei. And this isn't just Rei, by the way. Galadriel suffers from the same issue with consequences. She does awful, needlessly mean things, but always getting away unscathed for some reason. The writers seem terrified of giving them real consequences, and that's why these characters feel empty. They're going to be fine anyway. Momo, on the other hand, gets a murder case wrong once, and it's not like she's wrong, she's just a bit late and immediately pays a heavy price. She gets smacked in the face, has to accept help from someone she really doesn't want to, injured by a massive falling ornament, and the only reason she avoids execution is because she ultimately saved the murder target. Her consequences are real and they matter. That's exactly why we care. But even with personality, realism, and consequences covered, there's one final piece that wraps it all up and makes Momo stands out. It's something that I call the Momo effect. And yeah, it has to do with agency, okay? Talking about agency in the Apothecary Diaries might seem simple, because I mean, this is Momo, a capable personality. But when you look at the storytelling perspective and the psychological perspective, it has more nuance than it seems. In storytelling, agency refers to how much control a character has over their decisions and story arc. So basically, a character with strong agency means they shape the plot instead of just passively reacting to it. But in psychology, agency is the ability to act intentionally, to set goals, anticipate outcomes, and believe you have meaningful control over your actions. Now, if you ask, okay, why is this important? If we're strictly talking about this topic, it's because having agency, believing that your choices matter and influence outcomes, is incredibly rewarding. It aligns deeply with our innate desire for control. So let's try apply this to Momo. And this is when you can actually question Momo's agency. So from a storytelling perspective, she didn't even voluntarily enter the inner court. And Momo is, in the bigger picture, a high-functioning pawn. Mostly Jinsei's pawn. Jinsei throughout the story throws Momo into cases whether she likes it or not. Yet, if we look at it psychologically, does Momo feel powerless? Even though she doesn't always have options, she uses her own methods and approaches. Basically, she makes each mission her own, approaching problems truly as Momo. And this subtle yet crucial distinction gives her psychological agency. Which doesn't really matter in this context because, well, it so happens that Galadriel also has a strong agency. And look what people think of her. Watching Galadriel is boring and funny for all their own reasons, but the thing is, if we only look at how a character affects a plot, I mean the plot serves Galadriel. So what's the difference? Okay, to answer this, let's think of gaming. Okay, bear with me here. Let's take Elden Ring for example. Elden Ring is addictive because lots of things, but one of the most blatantly obvious reason is not because they only provide agency, but it's because they test your agency and they make you work on it. You're not guaranteed victory. They also offer you freedom to decide how to approach stuff so that you have more control. And with both of these, when you actually achieve the win, heck, even in the journey to achieve the amount of actual agency needed creates a huge wave of satisfaction. Without genuine setbacks, challenges, consequences, characters risk becoming empty power fantasies. And sadly, anime is filled to the brim with these characters. Momo, on the other hand, she doesn't constantly fight for survival, but she experiences meaningful struggles and moments of vulnerability, rich enough emotionally and practically that lots of people wanna stand with her. Agency is such a central factor in people's lives. You can practically see it everywhere. It's literally the spice of life. Without it, you don't even feel alive. Okay, back to the topic. This continuous tension between challenge and triumph is what I call the Mamo effect. So the question is, why Mamo? Because the setting of the Apothecary Diaries itself embodies the opposite of agency, an anti-agency environment. It's a world where even minor mistakes can lead to severe punishment, even execution, where even Mao casually acknowledges the very real threat of being sold if he loses her job. Look, in fact, most commoners in this world don't even have the basic agency of literacy. And this stark contrast makes Mamo's subtle but consistent assertion of control especially powerful. Full agency without meaningful personality or depth is just lame for a character. I mean, who's watching Solo Leveling for the nuance and intricate character development of Sang Jinwoo? I think people just wanna goon on Gina. And hey, if you just wanna goon, Gyokyo exists, bro. And don't forget, Ado, Lihua, Pyrin. I can't even show Pyrin because the budget.